There's quite a lot of difference, but also a lot of similarities between an architect and an interior designer. And today I want to talk about how each profession develops the concept. And I wanted to talk about the concept because it's really the foundation of every design project, and it's something that informs every aspect of the design. And fundamentally, it's how we approach problems and come up with solutions. I'll be talking about the difference in how we approach problems. I'll also be talking about the hierarchy of importance for each profession and how this can lead to very different results. A portion of this video is sponsored by Soundcore. More on them later in this video. Of course, this is based on my personal observations. I am an architect, trained as an architect, and I went through the traditional process of becoming an architect. But I did work at an interior design / architecture firm where I was the only architect working alongside other interior designers. And this process was so interesting to me and so eye-opening. And I actually saw a lot of flaws in my own training and how I approach design. So if you're an interior designer watching this, please feel free to share your thoughts and experiences so that this comment section can become a source of information for young people who are trying to decide which profession to go into. I also have a Discord server where you can ask questions, and we have a pretty big variety of people from different professions and backgrounds and experiences and skills. So yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to drop it in there as well. So high level, architects design the building and interior designers design within that shell. But there's also a lot of in-betweens, and a lot of architects do interior renovations. And personally, I've worked on a lot of interior renovations in my career, and really every project is unique based on the client and the project type. So keep that in mind as you're watching this. And if you want a full breakdown of the differences, like of the project types and the design process and the education, as well as the skills and personality that's required to thrive in each career, check out the video right here. I think there's a lot of nuances to the way we approach problems that's quite different. When it came to developing the concept, and I really tried to distill it down to the essence, I think the biggest difference is that architects derive their concepts from external sources, and interior designers derive their sources from internal sources. Let me explain. A concept is an idea that becomes a foundation and identity of every design project, and it drives it forward. It's the idea that informs the different aspects of your building in every step of the design process, and whenever you're stuck, you can refer back to the concept to get some clarity in your direction. It's also a really good way of embedding meaning into the project that's beyond just the building or the space itself. But most importantly, it's a tool to get buy-in from clients and your team and get everyone aligned on the same page. Each office and each designer is unique in their way of developing a concept, so try to learn from others. And as you work in different offices, try to also develop your own methods. Architects tend to derive their concepts from external sources. When you see an architect presenting their work, we typically start off by describing the context or the problems or opportunities they see on the site or the program. And this is all of your physical or social constraints of your project. And when you actually look at the most convincing presenters like Björk Ingels, they distill the problem into a really clear series of diagrams or images. And they use this to develop their functional or formal or material strategy, which forms the basis for their concept. But this isn't the case with just large buildings. Even when architects are operating at a much smaller scale, like interior renovations, the way we present concepts is almost always dependent on an external or site-specific or program-specific source. Let me just pause for a quick moment for a message from our sponsor, Soundcore. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like I'm constantly surrounded by noise and distractions. And for me, having a device that can help me stay focused really makes a difference. Soundcore's Space A40 offers the perfect balance between noise canceling performance, sound quality, and battery life. As a creator, I always try to absorb content as much as possible. So listening to audiobooks whenever I can now is kind of a part of my daily routine. The Space A40 adaptive noise canceling feature automatically detects different types of background noise and improves word comprehension even at really high reading speeds. The dedicated Soundcore app lets you customize the noise canceling parameters and you can even create a tailored sound experience via Sound ID, which is a feature that generates an EQ profile based on your personal hearing biometrics. It creates a really rich and vibrant sound experience that really makes me want to listen to music even more. Plus, these earbuds are really lightweight and comfy to wear, and they also have really useful magnets that can keep them together inside or even outside of their charging box. And with one single charge, you can get up to 10 hours of playing time. Check the link in the description if you want to know more. I'll give you an example with the project that I'm working on right now, which is a library renovation, where the driving concept is this idea of the urban courtyard. This was from a series of contextual factors. The library has this really beautiful garden that already kind of functions as a central green space in this very dense neighborhood. And you can see this solid void relationship within that building as well. When you enter the building, you've got this big 3-story atrium, and the library is also in a really diverse neighborhood. It's got a really high percentage of immigrants and people whose first language is not English. The functional program of the library is also pretty diverse. We're putting in a digital media lab, a lounge, a recording studio, a grab-and-go section. So we developed this idea of the urban courtyard. And courtyards have been pretty universal across different cultures throughout history. And although it first came to place to control the microclimatic conditions within buildings, over time, it evolved to become a social gathering place. And so this shared architectural language of the courtyard brings these diverse cultures and programs together while also bringing in an element of nature. You can see how we developed the concept by tying it to some of these external conditions. The broader and more flexible your concept is, the better, because you can tie it to a lot of different aspects of the design. For example, the courtyard. This can be functional or formal or social or organizational, and it has a lot of visual associations, so it can be also used to develop your material strategy. But a concept like, let's say, a digital hub, which is an idea that we've been talking a lot about, it doesn't have a lot of historical or architectural or visual associations, so it's a little bit harder to use it as a concept. Even the most form-driven architecture, like Frank Gehry's work, is in some way relating to its context. Now, architects will take this, and some architects will create a mood board, which I'll go into in a little bit, but when it comes to the hierarchy of importance for architects, like based on our training and our design philosophy, it's function, organization, order, and then we have mood. For interior designers, they don't really have these complex site conditions to work with, right? So they derive a lot of their concept ideas from internal sources. And what I found is that the concept development process in interior design is a lot more intimately connected to the client and their visions for the project. And so during this phase, we just sit with the client and we just talk about their vision for the space, not just programmatically or functionally, but how they want the space to feel and what's the image they want to project. And the client, they can bring their own inspiration images. And if it's like a commercial client, they can bring their own branding guidelines. And we basically work with the client to put together visual representation of this feeling, which is called a mood board. But before doing this, we would write a very small paragraph or like a list of words or a poem that kind of captures the mood or the direction that we got from the client. And I found this process super interesting. For me, language is not really my strong suit, so this was definitely kind of hard for me. But first of all, like, it's a really, really great way to consolidate all the information that you got from the client. But you're not just reciting what the client is saying. You're adding and you're elevating all the things that they said into a language that have a visual connection. So, for example, we were designing an office for a construction company, and some of the words that they used was things like trustworthy, kind, family business. And so you could use that to say something like grounded in family roots. And this kind of descriptive writing, it works hand in hand with the mood board, which is basically a collection of images that represent the mood or the feeling that you're trying to create. These images aren't necessarily precedent images. They're literally like images that combine together to create a mood. Everyone probably has a slightly different way of doing it, but the way that I was taught, you shouldn't actually include images of actual building elements. That actually comes in a little bit later in the design process. I've seen a lot of different reactions to this concept development process. Some clients are a little bit more literal and more pragmatic, and they just want to quickly move on to the actual design. But for a lot of clients, they get really involved and they want to bring their own images. And because interior design is so much more based on more elusive things compared to architecture, like they're more focused on the mood of the space, I think there's a much higher chance of misalignment. And so I think this step is a really, really good check-in point. And I think it's really essential for everyone just to make sure that we're all on the same page. Once you have the mood board, you pull together the colors, which become the basis for your material board. Each profession is really unique, and each designer and each office is really distinct in how they operate. As an architect, I learned so much from that time when I was working with interior designers. And I think one of the most eye-opening things was the relationships that they were building with the clients. And maybe it's a result of this more intimate process where you talk for prolonged periods of time about the client's desires. But I found that interior designers, in most cases, had a much more personal relationship with their clients. And I just thought it was a really important element that I could take into my work as an architect. I hope this video gave you a little bit of insight into the differences and the nuances of each profession. If you have any questions or thoughts on the topic, please let me know in the comments. And if you guys found this video helpful, make sure to give me a thumbs up, and I will see you guys in the next video.